session is a synthesis of many things. One, it is synthesis of a vendor's perspective as well as client's perspective. Second, it is a synthesis of business, an organizational tech visionary, as well as the pure tech implementation. So this is going to be a bit of different session. And so I just went to, I'm just ignoring this. I am just back from US. I spoke at an event organized by MIT, and it was also about data mesh. And these are some of the stats. The session was the highest attended one, and there were 6 other sessions on data mesh where Thoughtworks had nothing to do. So I just want to say that data mesh is something which is highly talked about in industry, and there are different perspectives that are floating around, and our aim today is to address and create a unified vision about data mesh. Basically, we want to simplify some of the things that are around data mesh. So before even we go to data mesh, I want to talk about some of the issues and challenges that we see every day. So one big challenge that businesses see is data latency. Data latency is delay, lack of access to right information, or quality of data, and it leads to non-utilization of data. Then dependence on specialist or tribal knowledge means you will look for some specific people to give you right data. Not a good idea. If you don't like my face, you might not give me the data. And then access management issue is definitely a big one, because right people need to get access. There has to be a record of access. These are proving to be challenging things. Regulatory compliance and data breach are big, and there is a study that clarifies that organizations who go through these two consistently perform lower than their peers on NASDAQ even 3 years after the data breach. In addition to these things that drag you down, organizations want to become productive, they want to innovate, move faster, and for that you require a good developer experience. And that comes when there are just the right degree of controls, not too tight, not too lax. So here are a few things, and basically if we drill them down, they fall into these 4 categories. So first of all, let's talk about dependence. How can you address the dependence? You can create clear business ownerships, you can do automations. Then data discoverability and trust, they are another big problems. You can create data discovery platforms, and you can give producers control to provide metadata and business definitions. Then latency is the problem. For latency, you can create a quality framework, enhance data quality, and then you can make data owners responsible and accountable for that quality. And then last is that organizations want to reduce the tech barriers. To do that, you can enable application teams to build or onboard data assets, democratize self-serve tools, because self-serve tools nowadays exist in some of the IT or tech functions, but they are not there in the hands of business as of now. We'll talk more about it. And then you can define and automate controls. Why I am talking about this? Basically, this is what data mesh enables. And now we will talk about what is data mesh. So there are other definitions of data mesh, but I want to clarify that data mesh actually is a framework of time-tested practices. These are time-tested industry practices that create an operating model for technology. It's a socio-technical approach. It empowers business users so that they can take right decisions at the right time. And of course, data producers and data consumers, the gap between two is reduced. So the data mesh is actually, it rests on 4 pillars, 4 principles. And these, everybody knew about them. Every corner talks about these 4 principles, and Thoughtworks has brought them together as a framework. So these are, first of all, domain-driven design or ownership, then data as a product, self-service infrastructure, and federated computational data governance. Now let's look at them from a very practical point of view. So to achieve whatever data mesh is doing, there is a principle called DATSIS. DATSIS means that your data should be discoverable, it should be addressable, you should be able to trust your data, it should be secure, interoperable, and self-describable. How? The biggest question we get is, what is a domain? Domain is a big mystery. So domain is basically, in the simplified terms, nothing, but you will have line of business, business functions, or business department. If you give them right tech capabilities, you can metamorphose them into domains. So if in your organization some of the tech capabilities already exist, you can extend them to data, and that's how you create the data domains. Now, this is an example of Gilead. Gilead is a healthcare provider in the US. That's how they have empowered their teams by giving them these tech capabilities. So I'll move on to the next. Now, what is a data product? Here is an analogy. My friend Sheetal has created this beautiful slide. So when you go to Amazon, you want to search for a product. What makes it easy? What is a product? You type the name of product on the search bar, you discover it. Data has to be discoverable. Similarly, when we created something for Saxo, which is called Data Workbench, Sheetal and Madhu will talk more about it. There was a search bar where you could type the name of a data asset and you could look for it. So it becomes discoverable. Remember D of the DATSIS principle. Now you see the catalog, product catalog. You see the different attributes. That's why on Amazon, this product is addressable. Similarly, in the Saxo's data workbench, you can find addressability of the product. And because there are customer reviews, I forgot I had a pointer. It's because customer reviews give you confidence. Similarly, here, how many people have used it gives you the confidence or trust on data. In addition to that, there is this product catalog that describes the attributes of products. So here is the description in Amazon. Similarly, the product is self-describable here on this side also. Now, you will say that interoperability and security are still left. So the data assets can be used by different functions or domains, making it interoperable, and data is secure. So here is our DATSIS principle that is fulfilled. So that is data as a product. When we talk about what is data as a product, this is data as a product. So next important pillar is self-serve capability. This is very important, and self-serve tools in the hand of business are very important. I'll give you an example. I used to work for Uber. I led their business development for supply side. When I did a partnership, I wanted to see how many drivers a partnership has brought in. What is the particular behavior? Do they switch on their app at some particular time? Is there a particular behavior, any particular geography? When I went to the data team, first of all, I was in a queue. Perhaps they didn't like my face. And I was always the last. And then when I get the data will be completely out of context. They thought I'm looking to provide incentives to the drivers. That was not my aim. So ultimately what happens? I don't use the data. So that's the example of data latency. Had I had self-serve tools like this data workbench, if I could type the name of data asset and get data, it was so easy for me. So that's the importance of these self-serve tools. Now, one very important aspect is federated data governance. So we define federated data governance in these 4 sections, and each one is very important because this again brings down your DATSIS principles. First thing is data catalog. Catalog should have metadata. ownership information, lineage, and business glossary, so that the definitions inside your organization are consistent. Shouldn't so be that finance is calling the same data asset by another name, operation is talking of something else, but they actually mean only one data asset. Then data quality has data quality rules, visualization, and you have to empower people to create new rules. You can't just make it a closed platform. So capability to self-serve capabilities to create new rules. Now, the difficult part comes actually in terms of data ownership, because that's where the organizational changes are required. So here the right personas, there will be a data governance committee, there will be meeting cadences, organizational incentives, all that falls into it. And this is, believe me, the hardest part. And then there is data security, again policy definitions, classifications, authorizations, encryptions and audits. Wherever there is human element, wherever there is organization change, it's very, very hard. And here I really want to be very candid. If someone tells you that we will sell you data mesh off the shelf, or we will come and create data mesh for you A to Z, sorry, not happening. Because you will have to go through that catharsis, you will have to work the right domains, you will have to find out which is the right domain from where you can start working. You will have to go through this pain of doing organizational change. So without that, data mesh doesn't happen. So another thing, very big question is, in this federated data governance, what is centralized and what is decentralized? So we are not saying that everything becomes distributed in this system. There are certain things that remain centralized. Your enforcement of security policies, encryption and masking, definition quality framework and matrices, or meta model for data product, standards and schemas, they will remain central. But when it comes to defining security policies for data products within the domain, that will become computational and federated. Similarly, you can see the list. I'll just give you an example, and I'll credit Balwinder for that, because you see, when it comes to GDPR, GDPR is centralized. That cannot be federated. But within the domain, the PII definitions can be federated. So that's how the distinction happens. So putting it all together, this is how it looks. On one side, there are centralized enterprise data governance policies, security and other stuff. On the other side is data platform. This is federated, it has self-serve capabilities, it has governance as a code in a federated manner. In between there are data domains and who are creating data products. These can be interoperable. The domains can create new products, and they can also, data from one domain can be served as product to another domain. Now you see, other part is the core always remains DATSIS. So that's our aim finally. With this, again, we come back to Gilead. So another important thing before starting your data mesh journey is you have to be very clear what you're trying to achieve. Unless you have this idea, what are the use cases you're trying to get to, it's very difficult. So this is how Thoughtworks helped them think through via DATSIS principle, what is there before and what is there after. I will not spend much time here because if there are questions, we can get to them later. With this, I will hand over to Sheetal, who will talk specifically about our experience and how we went about the Saxo journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Divya, for setting the context. A couple of call-outs. I was the product owner for Data Workbench as a part of Saxo Bank. I don't work with Saxo Bank anymore. I head the data platforms India for Adidas. This content has nothing to do with Adidas, just a call out. But this is, I'm here because I was a part of this and thank you Thoughtworks for having me. Also, a couple of more callouts are Kafka as a self-serviceable foundation for the organization was already set when we started this. When I joined Saxo Bank, yes, there were a couple of challenges which I'll talk about, which we addressed, like setting off the domains, setting up the data governance office. But then let's go through the journey. So I'll start with a little bit about what does Saxo Bank does. Saxo Bank is a Denmark-based trading platform. So it creates a trading product. It is democratizing the trading across the globe. Okay, so what was the challenge and why we did this, right? So we wanted to enhance the data quality because we serve three kinds of partners, traders, brokers, as well as white labeled clients, right? So it is very important that the data that was published on the product is of quality and at scale. And how do we enable our traders, our partners, white label partners as well, to reduce the time to market by providing the discoverability of data products, cataloging, ensuring transparency. I think a lot of things Divya has already talked about. And what was the outcome? The outcome of having Data Workbench as the data governance platform was to be able to set agreed standards across the organizations, ensure transparency, and ensure that Saxo can be present in the industry as a first-class citizen to enable the white label clients as well. So let's go through what we did. Okay, so before we started working on Data Workbench, some of the foundational work had to be sorted. If the domains do not exist in the organization, having the ownership is a bit of issue. So what Divya also referred is business domains can be directly linked with data domains. You don't have to have it separate, and this is a conversation that goes on a lot of organizations, different data domains and different business domains. So domain setup is one important part. You definitely need a top-down push. So we had a champion. Our CEO was a champion. We set up a data governance office, which was represented by all the vertical heads across the organization, including business as well as tech. And we had a C-level push to do it, without which data mesh will never happen. So it's a bottom up, but it has to be top down as well. And so we kicked off domain setup. That kicked off. We kicked off data governance office, and obviously this initiated an overall change in the operating model in which how the data was being treated at Saxo Bank. Okay, so this is just an indicative set of domains that we had. It's a trading product, and the domains that came out in line with the business functions were payments, tradings, markets, risk, post-trade, reference, finance, party. Now, without going to each of this, what is very important is the domain curation doesn't happen in day one. So it can be a phased manner. You can start with clarifying one domain, two domain, and it can be championed on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so when we set up a domain, right? So the domains have to be set up to make them autonomous from a data perspective on all of this. So the domains can later be autonomous from having explicit schemas, strongly typed data, standards aligned, consistent, curated data. They should be able to embrace change and evolve, documented, predictable numbers from the data perspective, and classified at source. So the data is of good quality if the quality is happening at the source. So pushing all the data quality at the source. So this was a major part of a solution, and maybe I can touch upon it later. Okay, so this is one of the success mantra which I think which is important for the success of data mesh, having the right operating model. So what we have, one is on the left hand side is set of domains. So domain we kicked off, that is important. Data governance office on the right hand side, that is kicked off, that's important. Then you definitely need to start engaging in the start before it is in the nirvana state to have the enterprise data architecture also involved. So the enterprise data architect team is involved in activating the domains. What do we mean by activating the domains? You have to first select the domains, bring them onboarded. Remember, this is a new concept. It has to be started from scratch. So you activate the domains by first letting them, educated them, identifying the data domain owners, data owners, and product owners. So this ownership can be at different levels for different organizations, but you need levels of ownership at the data domains. Now the enterprise architect identifies, so the domain will have their own engineers, have their own architects who start now working on the data and producing it to a self-serviceable platform. We had Kafka already there. So they produce it, but then you have your federated data governance kicked in because it goes through your CI/CD pipelines enable that the governance is happening from the enterprise architecture. So every data product that you create a pull request, it gets approved centrally. Your governance is as a code in the pipeline, and therefore you are able to publish standard good products. Okay, so let's look at, the data products can be three types. One can be consumer aligned, one can be producer aligned, it can be hybrid. Different organizations choose different way to produce the data products. At that point of time, we chose consumer driven data product. That means so data products, as Divya also explained, is nothing but a product, and the product concept is applied to the data. Now when do you treat data as a product? Every data cannot be a product. So I'll give an example, create order. Okay, create order need not be a product because it's a transactional event. It's an event, but it need not be a product. However, order details is a product because it will be consumed multiple times. Now, is your product consumable widely? Then you want to publish it. Create order, if you don't publish it, it's okay. So you have to be, so it's consumer driven, that's what we said. Data product example as I have given. And there are, our example when we started this was pricing. So we wanted to enable our traders with the pricing fluctuation. So the pricing team, which was the producer domain, published the pricing details, and the trading team, which consumed the pricing details because they had analytics to be able to help their traders with the real-time price fluctuations and deal with effective trading. And obviously the role of governance organizations, because the first wins are very important. So our first partners, the pricing partners, the trading partners enabled by the governance office had a big role to play. So again, going back to this topic, I'll not spend too much of time, but the concept of product is not new. It's existing in the digital world for long. How do you identify or classify an object as a product? When it is interoperable, discoverable, it should be able to discover, it has cataloging, it has all those DATSIS principles, and it's a product. And the same concept can be applied to data. And this is what we exactly did. The data product was available, the data object was available on Kafka. Our product data workbench enabled that with additional parameters of making it searchable, cataloging visible, transparency visible. We also enable that the UI is also looking same and enabling our business and tech users to consume the product or to take decisions how and when to consume the product. Yeah, so this is what it looked like, right? Pretty much in line with, and these kinds of UI, actually we used OpenStack called Data Hub on the background. And actually in Saxo Bank, we were from the banking world, we were also the champions, we were the partners for Data Hub evolution as well on LinkedIn side. And I think Thoughtworks was also engaged. So we engaged with Thoughtworks for the data workbench to enable creating data products and create a product out of Kafka implementation. Okay, so with this, thank you so much. Off to Madhu.
Thank you, Sheetal. Okay, now let's get into the implementation details. Okay, let's get into tech part of the implementation. So Sheetal talked about the Kafka platform is already there. Okay, first step of self-service is how quickly you can onboard the data products into the platform. This is where first set of self-service capabilities is built, so that domain team is able to publish their data product with ease. They don't need to worry about nitty-gritties of how to create a Kafka topic, how to enable security, how to build a schemas, okay, generating client libraries. Those are like everything is automated and available for the domain user. Of course, domain users are like trained or enabled to use this self-service capabilities. With this, domain team is able to, okay, this is why my data source available here, I need to bring it here, this is how the schema is. They actually checked into the GitHub. GitHub actions will trigger on, it goes through a series of validations, it automatically create topics and creates a pipelines to move the data to the Kafka platform. This is the first set of capabilities which is done. Next, next we wanted to move from a data asset to the data product. This is the journey of movement of the data asset to the data product. So we looked at what is the ask or a business use case from a Saxo and looked at the context and also like what is expected to convert into a data product, what are the requirements. We looked at the series of tools, both commercial as well as the open source, and also looked at the roadmap for the open source. Finally, we chose the data hub for a data catalog and the great expectation for a data quality. And then we started onboarding these tools into the platform and making sure that everything is cloud native, deployed these products and make them running. Now I'll talk about how do we turn data asset to the data product. This is where we are bringing a data asset to bring the data DATSIS principle and making it as a data product. First and foremost thing is we enable the capability so that data producers, owners, we can publish the data with all this kind of information. We enabled with a kind of accelerators, a kind of template based mechanism so that they don't need to go to the nitty-gritties of technology. So hardcore engineering is abstracted so that people can feel that information. And also we enhance the templates to capture the data ownership. This is one of the fundamental thing. We ensure that data ownership is a first class citizen in the data product and ensure that, okay, there are push and pull mechanism. Primarily we adopted the push mechanism so that data product owners understand their product better so that they can describe, articulate their data better. That is where we bring in the data, technical metadata. Lineage we actually decipher from the pipeline so that it can create the lineage. And also like the data elements is the one, okay, data producers are like domain team can classify this data. So which is a sensitive, which is a PIA, so that your federated governance automatically controls that. But again, the responsibility of identifying remains with accountability with the data owners. We provide interface to qualify that. Another important thing we brought in is business vocabulary. Of course, like in the organizations, you have a different term. Account means something in one department versus account means something in another department. This is where we brought in the business glossary. We kind of adopted SIBO and other things. We actually enhance the open source product to onboard the business glossary. So we given these capabilities, along with that, okay, we have come up with the quality framework, which is a kind of DSL, JSON based rules, which business team can able to create those rules, right? With that, my responsibility as a producer is done. So I'm handovering this, checking in this kind of templates, RI, JSON or YAML templates. I checked in the code. So there is a series of set CI/CD process to invoke through Git actions. It does everything. Okay, it creates a Kafka topic and connectors to pull the data, push the data, and harvest this metadata and create the entire metadata model. We come with a metadata model. It creates a meta model and also creates the on the fly quality processes which uses these rules and run the quality rules against these data assets, okay, and collect the metrics and harvest into the metric store. At the end of the day, we have a discovery interface which people can search for the data, not only just name, it can be any attributes element itself. You could search that interface and you can have a complete view of things. Okay, you can discover the data, you can discover through a technical terms or a business vocabulary, you are able to discover the data and can navigate to that. Okay, your technical metadata, understand the properties, who is the owner, okay, how it came to that position, and also what is the business terms which is associated with that. Then you will able to understand, is this the right product which I wanted to use or not, right? And also you have a crowdsourcing which actually helps you to have the visibility of who use this data. And with that, people has a right confidence. Okay, you have quality metrics also we attach to the data product. Not only the metadata, you have a quality metrics view so that you have a understand the confidence of the data as well. With that, so what we brought into the table is this, right? We have a data product owners. So they onboard the product with a kind of self-service tooling capabilities, and they define the quality rules as well as classify the elements, and also like they can associate with the business term, and there is auto discovery of business terms as well as you can attach the business terms. That is how the data producer, they also see their quality of the data. At the same time, as a consumer persona, the first and foremost thing, I should locate the data where it is available, which data product availability, and understand the data better, then I'll be able to make use of the data. With that, I'll hand over back to Divya.
Right. So I came at the right time for the claps. So I will extrapolate some of the business benefits here. So 3 big business benefits that Saxo derived. One was reducing cost of customer acquisition. How? You know, one side of Saxo is a platform. One side are the traders, 3 types of traders. I'll not go into details. Other side are banks. Banks provide financial products and access to the capital. So onboarding banks used to take more than 3 months, 2 to 3 months. Sheetal will correct me if I'm wrong. After this, the onboarding time reduced to good amount of 15 days to 1 month. So that was reduction of cost of customer acquisition. Second was reduction of cost of operation. This whole data workbench is run by a team of 7 to 10 people for a Saxo Bank of strength of 40,000 employees across the globe. Third was, since the data visibility, trust, discoverability improved, their propensity to do regulatory and compliance default decreased. So the lower cost of punishment, so to say. These were 3 big benefits that we had. So that's fine. Saxo example is great, but how does it help you? How can you move forward in your journey? So we have a 3-pronged principle here. First of all, you have to get your organization ready. Unless you work with your organization, with business, so that you're ready for organizational change, you're ready for creating that DG function, create those cadences, things will be very difficult for you. So that is one thing. Second is your tech has to be ready. Many a times in our experience across the globe that the as-is state is not well defined. So that audit requires lot of budget and again organizational convincing. So you have to get that done. Once you are there, then you would need the right tool. You would require tools, but not every tool will fit into your organization. It has to align with the flexibility that you require. The roadmap of the tool has to align with your aspirations, which is important. So you will have to go into test and learn mode. You will have to do a lot of POCs and see what works for you. We went through that journey. And that's why you need a partner who can A, bring objective eyes into your operations, B, is as innovative as you and ready to for this test and learn mode. Most of the vendors, when they come on board, they want to execute something, show success and go away. This is not the kind of project that you will be able to do with that approach. It's test and learn, MVP approach. You will have to iterate and learn multiple times. And then again, you have to bring the organization together. You have to get C-level buy-in. You have to communicate again and again, and you have to deliver quick and continuous business values along with alignments of team, technology, and platform development. So with this, we end our conversation here.